Oh, perfect. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So our next presenter is Juliette Perez. I'm going to turn it over to her at this point. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
So hi, my name is Juliette Perez, and I will be presenting my capstone on harassment when this conduct explicitly or implicitly affects an individual's employment, unreasonably interferes with an individual's work performance, or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. So to go into more depth, it includes a wide range of actions, which include offensive or inappropriate jokes, name-calling, remarks about clothing or appearance, offensive or inappropriate pictures or objects being shown, requests to spend time alone, excessive touching or hugging, or repeatedly talking about sexual experiences. So it's illegal in most legal contexts, but it depends on the situation. For example, some situations that might not be illegal would be offhand comments, minor isolated incidents, or simple teasing. This is because these don't impose a general civility code. So often the perpetrator is in a position of power or authority, as it makes it easier for them to act inappropriately. However, this is not true in all cases. So the perpetrator can be unaware their behavior constitutes as sexual harassment, but that doesn't change the fact that it's illegal and unlawful. So it constitutes as harassment whether there are witnesses or not. So if someone comes forward and says that something has happened, it's not necessary to find witnesses. What they said is true. So these incidents can also arise from misunderstanding from the perpetrator or victim, and through investigation, misunderstandings can be found reasonable or unreasonable. So sexual harassment is not about sex. Sexual harassment is about power. So I will talk a lot about this throughout my presentation, but a lot to do with sexual harassment, especially with younger people, has to do with power imbalances. So specifically in the jobs that a lot of teens take and occupy, they are essentially powerless. They have little experience with work, and they're not necessarily in a valued position in the company, while managers or supervisors or any other coworker will probably have a lot more power, which in some instances can be dangerous. So sexual harassment in the workplace. Mary Rowe was a chancellor in the Working Women at MIT, and because of her work, MIT was one of the first large organizations in the US to develop procedures and policies to prevent sexual harassment. She was the one that coined the term sexual harassment while she had a lot of meetings in Massachusetts in 1970, where other women joined and talked about their experiences of being intimidated and harassed by men in a sexual nature in their workplaces. And they explained that some of them were fired and a lot of them quit because of this. So incidents can be a one-time occurrence that doesn't make it serious if an employee from then on will feel uncomfortable or scared taken seriously. So sexual harassment is considered legal at the workplace when it is frequent or severe, thereby creating a hostile or offensive work environment, or when it results in an adverse employment decision. So sexual harassment in the workplace can be constituted as quid pro quo or hostile work environment. In a couple slides, I'll go into more depth with both. So nearly 70% of 16 to 17-year-olds end up working part-time jobs, and 35% of them report experiencing sexual harassment at some point. And I'll go into the statistics more in a couple slides as well. So important sexual harassment cases. All of these were extremely important in having sexual harassment first codified in the US law. And a lot of our previous civil rights activists, African American women, they used the principles they had learned from civil rights in terms of sex discrimination in these cases. So there was Williams versus Saxby and Paula L. Barnes, appellant versus Douglas M. Kostel, administrator of the Environment Protection Agency. And these two cases determined that it was sex discrimination to fire someone for refusing superiors' advances. There was Bundy versus Jackson, which was the first federal appeal case that work sexual harassment was actually employment discrimination. There was Meriter Savings Bank versus Vinson, and then finally Alexander versus Yale, which was a case that established that the sexual harassment of female students can be considered sex discrimination under Title IX and therefore illegal. So types of sexual harassment. Going back to what I was talking about before, quid pro quo is a Latin term that translates almost directly as something for something. So it's an exchange and a bribery where a superior offers an employee professional benefits in return for sexual or romantic favors. So this could result in a raise or promotion, or on the flip side, if an employee declines the advances, they could be demoted or even terminated in some cases. So hostile work environment is inappropriate behavior in a workplace that makes it difficult or uncomfortable for an employee to complete work, and it's behavior that is includes sexually charged, hostile, or offensive actions or comments. And hostile work environment can manifest over long periods of time with a lot of small incidents, or it could be the result of two rather serious or even one serious incident. So under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, both of these are illegal. So these are used in a lot of cases to determine which one it was and how serious it might be. So these are some high-profile cases that I thought were important to include. If you look over it, you can see that a lot of them are well-known restaurants or fast food chains that we know about, such as KFC, Subway, Dairy Queen, Dunkin' Donuts, Chipotle, Burger King, again, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks. So a lot of teens get involved in the food industry because it's easy. There's a lot of open jobs in these industries, and for your first job, it's not that hard. But this is where a lot of sexual harassment of younger people occurs. And as you can see, some of them are not settled, which actually happens with a lot of them. And these are just a minuscule fraction of the actual cases that occur within these industries. But a lot of these companies, they're big corporations and they have the money and the time to fight cases like this, so they stay under wraps, so the media doesn't figure out about it. But this is a common occurrence in these industries. So not just the rich and famous. So a lot of the media focuses on sexual harassment of younger people that occurs within elite groups like modeling, politics, or acting. But a lot of the sexual harassment cases that are reported and unreported from adolescents happen within low or minimum wage paying jobs, such as retail, hospitality, and the food industry. It's in these industries that the employees are reported something that has happened. So I think that more light should be brought to both, but especially within these industries where there's low paying jobs, because it is an occurrence, common occurrence that we don't know too much about. So these are some pie charts that I made. So total part-time workers. So 70%, about 70% of total part-time workers are around 16 to 17, and the rest are 30%, which is 18 plus. And this is important to note because younger people or temporary workers, part-time workers, they often don't receive the same training or education about sexual harassment at their workplace. So they might be at a higher susceptibility because they don't know as much about it and they don't know their rights and the policies in the specific place they're working. The perpetrators. So 61% of the time the perpetrators are coworkers. And through reading an article, I found that the coworkers are more likely to be peers. So 19% of the time it's supervisors, which is an example of the kind of power imbalance that can be dangerous with superiors exploiting their younger employees. And then the rest, 20%, is vendors, customers, or really anyone else that passes through the place of work. Gender of teen victims in the workplace. So as you can see, the majority of the victims are girls at 63%, and then the rest are boys. The ratio reported to unreported. So unfortunately, as you can see, majority of sexual harassment cases go unreported at the workplace. That's 72%. And then the reported cases are 28%. And it's important to note that not all 28% of these cases, not all of the victims within these cases are fairly compensated for what has happened to them. So with actions, as I was saying before, most sexual harassment occurs within minimum or low wage paying jobs, because this often helps So how does this happen so often? So employers and companies often lack attention on sexual harassment in their establishments, and they don't always work on or value training talk to their employees about the topics, their policies and the rights that each employee has. Also, as I was saying before, temporary, intern, or part-time workers often don't receive the same training and information about sexual harassment. Usually it is full-time employees that do receive the most information that the employer will offer about it. So workplaces often do not address sexual harassment until there is an occurrence or something is filed. And as I was saying before, 72% of sexual harassment cases go unreported. So while a company or a business might not think something is happening, there certainly might be harassment that is occurring and they don't know about it. So they might not think it's serious, however, it certainly is. So adolescents are new to the workforce and might not have a deep understanding of appropriate work behaviors. So actions that are not appropriate and illegal can easily become normal to them when they're not addressed by someone. So also, some girls fear reprisal or losing their job as a result of addressing the harassment. And as I was saying before, some are very dependent on their jobs and the money they're making, and they don't want to risk losing this money. In the past, a lot, when women went to report sexual harassment, they were mocked, they were told they were lying, and humiliated in a sense. So a lot of them fear that this will happen if they try to speak up about what has happened to them. Also, repeating what I was saying before, there's often dangerous power imbalances with such jobs because anybody of someone who's older, who has been working at the company, career path, they can end up having lower lifetime earnings and diminished financial security. There can be an increased vulnerability to workplace harassment and violence in the future. So there can also be a significant decline in mental health, like feelings of depression, sadness, nervousness, anxiety, anger, betrayal, drop in self-esteem. And all of this, unfortunately, can lead to self-harming, substance abuse, unhealthy relationships, riskier, dangerous diets, change in sleep schedule, or isolation from friends and family. And also, psychosomatic stress symptoms can occur, such as headaches, stomach pains, insomnia, or low energy. And finally, it can lead to academic withdrawal, which would include a drop in grades, an increase in absences, a lack of engagement or focus towards their education, a decreased quality of schoolwork, loss of friends, and tardiness. So effects of sexual harassment are indeed lasting, as harassment experiences early in the career were associated with heightened depressive symptoms nearly 10 years later. So a lot of us, when there's an incident that happens, if it's a one-time thing, we might not think it's that serious, but clearly it can last an extremely long time, even a decade, and it is certainly very impactful on a young person's future life. Technology, what is its effect? So adolescent workers often have trouble differentiating between work and social persona because of technology. They can easily become social media friends with their coworkers or supervisors or any other employees. And this digital connection kind of breaks the sense of formality between the two, which leads to the adolescents being of higher susceptibility to sexual harassment because the supervisor, the manager, their coworkers might feel that they have the adolescent in a more comfortable state, knowing about their little parts of their personal life. So perpetrators can now easily hide behind technology, unlike when harassing is a face-to-face situation. So perpetrators might even be more forward and inappropriate over technology because it's not in real life, which is definitely more dangerous. So one report noted that teenagers were texted late in the evenings by their supervisor with subtle or not so subtle overtures. So obviously managers or supervisors, they have their employees' numbers at the jurisdictions. So I created a survey and sent it to therapists who took it. They mostly treat adolescents, so I thought it would be interesting to see their insight about this topic. So about what percentage of adolescent workers, females, have received some type of information, advice, or guidance on how to deal with, work through, approach, and spot sexual harassment when they first begin their jobs, to their knowledge. And the average response was between 19 to 20%, which is extremely low. About what percentage of adolescent girls have experienced some type of sexual harassment at their place of work? And the average response was between 37 to 40%. Did this occurrence affect their school performance? And the average response was yes, on a level of about 4 to 5. Did this occurrence affect their mental health in any way? And the average response was yes, on a level of about 6 to 7. Did this occurrence affect their personal relationships in any way? The average response was yes, on a level between 5 to 7. How much did this change their likeness towards their work? And the average response was yes, on a level of about 9, which is also very high. Is there a percentage that quit their jobs altogether as a result? The average response was yes, about 42 to 45% ended up quitting their jobs. Do you believe this occurrence will have an effect or effects that will last their whole lives? And through the responses, I kind of determined that it depends on the person, it depends on the situation. It is and the average response was between 30 to 35%. And this is also very low. I think it's important to note that this might be because of fear of embarrassment, humiliation, and almost retaliation from whoever they go to. About what percentage of victims said they felt supported by their workplace after the occurrence if they did go for help? And the average response was about 30%. And the last question, about what percentage said they would never truly feel or felt comfortable in their place of work again. And the average response was about 68%, which is extremely high. So solutions and preventions. Workplaces must commit to informing and educating all of their employees of their rights and policies on sexual harassment, especially managers and supervisors, as they do have power and they should be monitoring the workplace. And also especially younger people who this is their first experience with work and they don't know too much about this topic. Policies and rights should be looked over more often, at least annually. Explain more in the next slide. And all complaints should be taken very seriously. Even if the person you go to might not think it's serious, it should be taken seriously. Each employee's voice should be heard, and what has happened to them should be taken in a serious manner so they feel reassured and they feel comfortable. So going along with that, it's important to maintain a caring and safe work environment. So employees shouldn't fear retaliation if they do report that something has happened. They should feel that the environment they work in is safe and they're able to talk to whoever they really need to about something that's happened. Sexual harassment in the workplace warning signs. So going back to what I was saying before, it's important especially that managers and supervisors know about these warning signs. So these are some examples: signs of favoritism, signs of stress from supervisors or subordinates, or really any other employee. Unexplained friction among staff, unusual evaluations, demotions, raises or advancements, pay changes or terminations, or unusually close relationships between managers or peers and subordinates, which would include possibly a lot of private conversations and excessive touching. So that was the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something. And I definitely think there should be more light and shed on this topic, as it is important that we protect younger people from future sexual harassment in the workplace, as it is a lot more common than we do think.
Nice job, Juliette. You clearly have a lot of passion in this topic, and you took a lot of time and a lot of research. I was really, really impressed with the interviews that you did with the therapists. I think that puts a great spin to all of this and getting their perspectives. It was really, really well done. Nice job.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. For those of you who are tuning in, you can use the chat feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you want to post questions or comments. I could read those aloud for you. And the first one is from Mr. Maseni. Great research and thorough and throughout the presentation. Very thorough. Nice job.
Thank you.
So question I have for you, it hit home for me when I heard you say that 72% of cases are unreported by adolescents. In your opinion, do you think it's lack of knowledge for the adolescents, or do you think it's fear?
I mean, I definitely think it's both, but especially with lack of knowledge. I mean, at their age, you don't have a lot of experience with work. You know, you don't know exactly what's right and what's inappropriate, you know, in a lot of senses. Some things might seem insignificant to them, although it might be, you know, really significant on, you know, many aspects of their life. So I think that it's both, but I definitely think that lack of knowledge is something that can be, you know, worked on and, you know, fixed, while fear, you know, also should be worked on, because it's really just about having an environment where people feel comfortable voicing their opinions or what's happened to them. So, I mean, I think it's a mixture of both, but definitely both should be focused on, I guess.
I agree. Good answer. This is from Miss McGregor. So well researched. I found it fascinating how little training teens receive about this important topic. And I think we can all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. Congratulations, you're done. I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the school year, which isn't much more time. And I'm happy that this was a good experience for you.
Yeah, I really
I'm going to move